Happy Saturday morning, everybody. Welcome back to no, it's not the grind today. It's actually a chill day for most people. Most people have the day off. But you know what? I want to talk about something I promised you yesterday that I would drop a video here today, Saturday. Just change it up a little bit. Normally it's Monday to Friday. I thought I'd drop in an extra one here just to share a little bit of my own personal experience again. How, in fact, I do like to unload. And the fact that even last year when we took our trip to Italy, the week 2 was a great week because it was a week where I like to share what we went through, what we dealt with, and the fact that, you know, my driving experiences, driving in Italy was a real eye-opener. It was a lot of fun. It was interesting, but it also reminded me the hustle, the bustle. It also reminded me of all that energy, that very energetic scenario that you need to have in the day-to-day, that go, go, go attitude of when you're working. That whole idea of just go, 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 get in, and there's this big mad rush, and then basically it all ends when you roll into work and you're all built up and you're all anxious and nervous and energetic. And this is our work as a general. And, you know, I haven't really been experiencing that so much here since I've been retired. And even when I go out to drive now, I just prefer to pick days or times when things aren't quite so crazy. So, you know what? I'm going to share this video. It was a really, really wonderful vacation, and it was 3 weeks. This is the second week I want to talk about. We did a little bit of a cruise, a little bit on land, and I want to share some of those experiences and moments with you, and you're definitely going to love it. So just be sure to sit back and enjoy the ride. Getting ready to board the big boat. Off and away we go. Guys, so excited to get on the boat or what? Hey guys. All right, and here we go. Here's the room. And there we have it. We're heading off to sea here very, very shortly. As you can see below, we're not quite departed yet, although they've pulled the chute out there. We're still basically all tied down all along. Set to head out to sea, and we're kind of set to look to probably a 7-day excursion. So as well, some of the car experiences I've had already. Now I've been driving here in Italy for about a week, and I can't help but share some of the experiences I've had thus far and how I've seen different types of drivers and methodologies and how everybody kind of gets behind the wheel and manages that. Whether you drive in Canada, I've driven the United States, I've been driven Portugal, Italy now, Mexico. I mean, I've driven a lot of different places. And it's quite a different, in a lot of ways, the way people drive. I want to talk about that as we set off, but I just wanted to show you first kind of what we're about and, of course, what we're about to embark on. And again, welcome. Good morning again from Mark. All this a vlog here. Just got up. We're actually, you'll notice there's an island in the background. I'm not totally sure what that island is off of Italy. Italy's out in that direction there, that general direction. Syracuse is actually a town we're supposed to be stopping in today, so I want to feature that as we roll in. I definitely want to show you some of those events, but more importantly, I was going to mention how some of the driving is, or some of our experiences have been. And actually, before I do that, a lot of you wonder, well, why do you go on a cruise? Well, cruises are kind of fun. It's a great way to change it up. We're doing 3 weeks here in Italy. The first week was on land, second week is a cruise, third week we're going to basically do another week on land. But the point of the matter is, it's just one of those weeks to chill and not have anywhere necessarily to go and just spend. It's a good wind down time. And I do like being on the water. A lot of you guys who know me, I've definitely been on the water. And a lot of people have asked me this question. What's with the tattoo? Look, we have an anchor right there. Yep, you betcha. But there's more to that story. Either way, so we're heading off. We're going to head to Syracuse. Today I want to talk about some of the things that I mentioned earlier I would discuss, and that is drivers and what I've experienced in driving here in Italy. Now, from those of you who are from North America, and I've been to the U.S. and Canada, U.S. is primarily like Canada. It's all the same. The big cities, the little cities, they're very much the same. They follow the same strict type of rules. You know, there's photo radar, there's police radar, there's lanes, and people follow the lanes. You know, the yellow lanes usually mean don't cross, don't drive on the shoulder. Pretty typical stuff, right? Routine things. But here, well, first of all, I'll mention in Mexico, all those rules are off as far as my experience. Secondly, I want to talk about Italy here. specifically because Italy sort of has its own, well, there's rules. And, I follow them basically to the letter of the law as far as I can. As a Canadian driver coming into Italy, you want to make sure you do that. You don't want to have any kind of troubles with the polizia or whatever here in Italy. So you just want to basically keep it on the straight and narrow, and I try to do that. Follow the speed limits, as best I can, and try to follow the lanes and do all those things. But I'll tell you right now, so the first thing I'll mention, Canadian drivers, generally as a whole, it's a very, if I can use the term, they follow rules, they're straight and narrow, if not somewhat lethargic. Can I use that term, lethargic? Either it's from one extreme to the other. There's people that are sleeping behind the wheel, or the light turns green and they're like, what? And then they take a moment to set off. You go from that type of driver, and then they lock themselves in a lane and they're too scared to change lanes. Or what you have as well in other situations with Canadian drivers is lots of rear enders. There's no reason really for that. You see lots of collisions in Canada. And I think that speaks to the fact that most Canadian drivers start relying on the systems. And the systems, lights, stop signs, directions, arrows, this, that. Like, there's all kinds of directions, laws, rules governing people. And as soon as something is missed, or somebody kind of blinks for a second, misses something, I think what you find, and if you're from Canada, you'll probably know, and a lot of American cities too, you have higher speeds, you have lots of rules, regulations, but there's lots of collisions, even in the summer. I drive along in summer in Canada, and I struggle to understand why people are crashing into each other. Rear enders, T-bones, side swipes. The roads, the sun's shining, everything's good, and people are crashing into each other, and I don't understand how that works. I'll say right now, so I've been driving around in Italy here now for a little bit, and I also have some experience in Portugal. Very similar in Portugal. I find that they are a little more in the lines, a little more rule following. They're more consistent, they're more predictable. Here in Italy, on the other hand, drivers are quite different. I would use the argument that they're better drivers, but some would argue, well, that's not the case. What I would say is, you can get going through a 2 or 3 lane roadway, and it becomes basically a mix of a conglomeration of 5 lanes. People traversing apart and across from each other. As you're cruising along, you're trying to keep a little bit of that space cushion, but a lot of people end up taking that cushion up. You're driving along and woof, you got a motorbike in front of you, or all of a sudden, boom, a little Fiat cuts right in front of you, or there's another car, and then I'm telling you, here in Italy, it's pretty intense. So the other thing, everybody drives manual, so there is the odd automatic out there, or the odd CVT, or the odd, modern day, put it in gear and away you go type transmission, but most people here are driving stick. So you got to be driving stick, you got to be on the ball, you got to be knowing where you're going, and you got to be very, very careful as to what's around you. I would say the driving experience has been one in which, if I can explain it in 2 words in Italy here, spatial awareness. Because it's not just about knowing your car and how it operates and putting it in gear and putzing along. It's actually more about who's around you, what's around you. You get caught going down. I went down one of these roads one day. I had to actually pull the mirrors in, and it was a bit of a windy through this neighborhood, but we needed to get through there to get down to the bottom of the hill to this other little thing we were trying to see. But the road was so narrow that we had to pull the mirrors in on the van, and we could barely negotiate. And God forbid, if I had to back out of there, that would be some of the ugliest thing I've ever seen. So I do find you have to know the limits of your vehicle. You have to know the corners, the spatial awareness. You have to know people, cars, motorcycles, they're cutting in. You have to be very, very, not aggressive, but when it's go time. There's no farting around. So I would say it's been quite interesting. And if I could summarize, I'd say the Italian drivers are 10 times the driver that you're seeing in a lot of other places. Not from necessarily a safety perspective, but it's the same train of thought that I use as, say, a rally driver. You ever think about rally. You know, those off-road rallies, you know, Subaru and all those cars that those guys are going mock chicken. They have a driver, they have a person there giving the directions, and they're going mock chicken on the edge of no adhesion. They're flying, hitting crests, and sailing and drifting around corners. There's no precision in that. But what there is a driver who's able to manage a car at the edge of chaos. In my opinion, that's probably the best way I can put it. And that's kind of how I see the driving here. It's been absolutely awesome. I love it. But it's one of those things. Spatial awareness is what you have to have checked in right here. So I definitely wanted to share some of my up-to-date experience on the first week and change of driving around here in Italy. And we're going to set off and basically head off to the next job. Here is the next port that actually we're coming across. Looks like we're touching down in Italy one more time, and that's there it is, long and short of it. Syracuse, Italy, great, beautiful city, chocked with history. Some fun facts for you. 734 BC, the Corinthians actually named this city as one of the most rich and powerful cities in the Greek history. Clearly one of those that was far and above the rest, of course. More importantly, as we stand in front of it here, I look around, we have this beautiful area here. We have a lot of boats, and on the other side of the ship where I'm standing, of course, I've got the ship here. On the other side, there's lots of sailboats cruising around. But as we look around, there's some really cool little dining spots there right along the edge of the water here. We have all kinds of rich historic type of places that go back thousands of years, really, if you can say thousands, hundreds to thousands of years. And lots of great history here. Beautiful infrastructure, architecture, buildings that just have been here for a long, long time. Very, very chocked full of history. Of course, the ancient ruins you can find here too, and there's lots of things to see and do in Syracuse, Italy. So it's one of those must-stop places if you want to get to Italy. Check down, this is on the lower, basically the lower segment, Sicily, Italy. So far on the far end of the heel of the boot, if you will. If you have a picture of what that map looks like, this is where we're at, Syracuse. So, but that moves us to the next conversation. It wasn't about this. This is a fun fact. The next conversation is, so I learned a few things about the Ferrari factory. So in the last week, you know, we showed that we went down there and we walked around. I showed you some of the history there and some of the engines and all of that good jazz. But one thing I just wanted to expand on, if you're making your way down and you want to come visit for, you know, Italy and you want to see maybe some of the Ferrari stuff or Lamborghini or Pagani, a lot of those, they're all in similar areas. You know, within an hour's worth of drive of each other pretty much. So that's what we did. We made our way down to the Ferrari factory. I want to get a good look. I mean, it's got such rich history of its own in F1. So I want to learn a little more about Ferrari. So what I did learn though, unfortunately, so there's some fortunate parts, and there's lots to see. You can see there's two museums. There's one in Modena. There's also one in Maranello. So from my experience, the Maranello one is far and above, probably the better of the two, but either way, between those two, you usually get a 2-for-1 package. If you make your way, check them out. You need your own transportation to get to and from between. So if you're making your way out there, you probably have a vehicle you've rented or something. Anyhow, I would suggest do them both. Each one probably take an hour to 2 hours a pop, somewhere in that range. You're going to see a lot of amazing cars. Let me just say that as I stood and I looked at some of the cars, of course, you look at cars, I mean, you're standing in the museum next to cars that are worth tens of millions of dollars, and you're looking at them with all of their glory and the patina, and it's just a spectacular sight. You're also able to see all of the F1 engines, you know, the V6, V10, V12 engine. I mean, everything is there for to take that all in. So it's spectacular. So you have the engines, you have a lot of their classic cars, everything from some of the older cars, 250s, and kind of all the way newer. There's FXX and pretty much everything in between. The F40 was one of the highlights for me. That was always a legendary car. I know if any of you guys are older like myself and you kind of grew up in the 80s were your heyday, I would say then you probably recognize back in, say, 87, the Ferrari F40 was the first car to smack down 201 miles per hour and destroyed everything. It was a manual gearbox, gated shifter, twin turbo, V8 engine, makes about 478 horsepower. It was nothing short of spectacular. So to see cars like that in these museums were nothing short of amazing. And then of course they have, a bunch of script and things that you can learn about the history of Enzo and some of they even show his little office space that he worked in. They showed his desk and some of the areas, that he lived, and how they basically converted his home into a bit of a shop. And then of course there's two different areas that's why the Maranello versus Modena. But there's tons of rich F1 history, street car history, engine manufacturing. It's just great. And when you look at those engines on the stand, it makes you realize that they're no BMW engine. There's a reason they cost what they do. They're finely tuned, finely crafted, well engineered, well thought out, and they're just constructed in a very, very nice way. And the execution of that design is spectacular. So I learned a ton by going to the museums, and if anybody wants to do the same, I would say that's a good thing. I will say, however, one thing I was trying to do was get a backdoor pass. Essentially, trying to find my way in to get an actual, say, a workshop tour. One of those tours that you get the real deal, the real nitty gritty in the back door, where you can get in and you can see actually them assembling the cars, and you watching Guido build that engine, or Giuseppe assembling some of the chassis and the gearbox. Those are the things that I wanted to see. And I'll have to say that after doing some research, finding out very, very clearly, you don't get those types of tours. Those types of tours are exclusive pretty much, from what I've seen, for people that have a bit of a history in ownership, or they definitely are, a Ferrarista, if you will, and they have come from the brand and they've shown loyalty to the brand. Then, if that's the case, you can go to your local dealer, they put in a pledge for you, boom, and you can probably get something set up, but it's not a gimme. There's nothing a gimme about it. It's definitely a bit of a cultural thing, if you will. So I learned a few things about that. Ferrari's a little bit different in that regard, but you know what? Maybe that's part of the mystique, so it's quite interesting. But if you do think that you're coming down to Italy, lock, stock, and barrel, and you have no history in Ferrari, and you just want to take that grand backdoor tour, good luck. I will say though, near one of the museums, I believe it was in Maranello, there's all these shops. Like there's literally about 4 or 5 shops right near, like across the road. Like you walk there, you're walking around about 3 or 4 different shops. They all rent Ferraris. I saw a Ferrari California convertible. I saw an F8. I saw a 488 Pistas, or a couple of them. I even saw a Lamborghini STO there for rent. I saw, unfortunately, a McLaren 720. Not unfortunately, but clearly out of its element. So I would say there's lots of opportunity to rent cars. There's also lots of opportunity to go on rides, to see all these things. There's lots of different variations you can go on the track as well. So for about $1,000 is what I saw. I did some research on this. For about $1,000 or €1,000, you could probably get yourself behind the wheel for an hour of an F8 on the street, or certainly on the track as well. Give you about 5 laps, I believe it was, for the similar money. So yeah, absolutely some opportunities. Not cheap, but then again, if you don't want to commit to the 500 grand for a new car, you just want to get your willies and jillies, then you could probably just go that route. I will say, heads up, for those of you traveling and you're driving, getting behind the wheel of some of these, getting behind the wheel in Italy, probably want to look at the international driver's license. There's some decree that was signed many, many moons ago that basically states that you probably should have not just a driver's license from your home residence or country, but Italy requires apparently this international, which you can apply at your own jurisdiction. So it's another step to getting the license to technically to drive in this in the country of Italy. So again, the thing I just want to mention is, if you do plan on driving with some of these fancy cars, look into your international driver's license, because it's likely going to be a thing. Oh, what are we looking at here? Let's take a quick look, everybody. We've got this great boat just cruising around. Another beautiful day. As you can see, we woke up last night. I had a tough time actually sleeping because the boat was there was a little more of this rocking action going on. Probably around 4 o'clock in the morning, it got a little rough, it got a little jagged, and you could hear the wind howling, and there was water on our door, and we're way up here. I mean, as you can see, we're way down. So, of course, it was a pretty rough one. It was a little harder to sleep last night, but that's cool. We're here, we're out and about, and actually what we ended up doing was going out here for a little exploration. We just got back at this port. We got to be back on the road, so to speak, by about 5 o'clock today. What is this? Anybody know what this is? What town this is? Give you a hint. It's one of the 10 smallest countries on the planet. There's approximately 500,000 people that work or live here permanently. There's lots of ancient, thousands of year old infrastructure here. This place is very old. And honestly, it's one of those ports that was strategically located for the naval base, essentially for some military many years ago. And as well, if I can add, that it actually was under the British control, if you will, or the regime, or the British, whatever you want to call it, the bubble. Yeah, that's right. This is Malta, and we just got back. Malta, what a gorgeous little, basically, again, more of an island really than a country, but it is a country, it's an island, it's all the same. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, what we had today was a little bit of an exploration, saw some of the older infrastructure. Very cool. As you saw some of the scenes, we're going to share some of those scenes right now. If you've been to Rome, then you'll appreciate this. This is not that densely populated relative. But when we were out and about cruising around, we were on a bus. We decided to take a little bit of a tour bus, one of those open top ones, or open sides where you're able to take a look around. And the worst part is we were cruising around a corner, and the bus driver decided, he literally hammered on the brakes because some little old lady that was quite rickety was kind of like, looks like she stepped out on the road the last second and forced the bus driver to actually virtually lock him up. I saw people launch out of their seats. Now, I know they do say, well, use your seatbelts. Nobody really says it. And like most buses I know in Canada, North America, a lot of times they don't even have seatbelts equipped. But these ones did, and I think a lot of people did not, or chose not to wear them. And as a result, there's a lot of bumps and bruises and people banging their knees and their faces on the wall. It was kind of a bit of a shit fiasco. But here, I'll just show you around real quick and see what you think. Clearly, quite the port here. We're tied down. Obviously, we've got another big boat over there waiting to take off. We had some people marching out of there earlier. That's how you get through. And of course, we had these little rental place with these Twingos, Renault Twingo. Very cool. Looks like a little two-seater car, but you sit front and back with them, and they have Lambo-style doors. Quite a cool little rig right there. As you can tell, beautiful little cars. I'd love to have these in North America just to get around for basic commuting. So like I said, Lambo style doors, not all that fast. These ones are electric, I believe, from what I could tell. And then, cycle around there. And of course you have this beautiful boardwalk. Absolutely stunning infrastructure here. This is a beautiful spot. Honestly, I have to say that probably one of our nicest spots. When I got up this morning, I popped out of our room here, I slid that open, and I welcome to this beautiful scene because again, we pulled up here at night and this is what I woke up to. Absolutely stunning, gorgeous. If you're in the area, I think it's a must-see. Looks like we've got a bunch of Sea-Doos down there for rent too, a lot of people with their boats. Clearly one of those areas that's definitely a must-do and a must-target if you're in this area. If you're sailing around in the Mediterranean, this is the spot you want to be. Well, good morning, everyone. What do we have right behind us there? How about over there? We have more islands and more islands right there. Look, there's even another ship, and there's a few ships waiting around to get on board. Where have we actually landed? Well, I have to tell you, after about a day at sea, we've been cruising around, kind of battling for food and places by the pool. Now, today, we are actually set to anchor up and stop in the Mykonos Islands. Of course, yes, we're in Greece, and we've finally landed in another cool spot that's been clearly one of my bucket list places, and we're going to live it today. So we're going to launch, drop an anchor, we're going to take a little water taxi in, and then probably later on, I'm told about 5 o'clock, the boat will be able to pass the authorities' permission, and then we'll be rolling right inside and then taking the boat right onto shore. And then, of course, we're going to explore Greece in its entirety.
It's getting kind of hot, so we decided to stop here in Mykonos and a great little stop, have a beer.
Hey buddy, what do you think? What do you guys think? Up here? Got the beach. There you go, there it is. And of course we got the water splashing right in.
So cruising along here in Greece, it is absolutely beautiful. It has architecture and building design and the paint and the themes, you know, the white buildings and the blue tops that you just don't see anywhere else. You know, Greece is clearly one of those authentic, unique kind of places. Unfortunately, a few years ago, they had a real rough go economically. I remember bank machines getting locked out, people not getting access to their cash. And unfortunately, that sort of reminds me of what's starting to happen in Canada. Now, for a lot of you who have been paying attention to kind of the news here, you probably realize that in Canada last year, there was that convoy. And as a result, the federal government felt compelled to literally grab everybody's bank account who was involved in some way to support or fund those truckers, and essentially decided that, hey, they're going to lock out their account. And then it quickly gave me flashbacks. I was just blowing my mind, because that's kind of what they kind of saw similar to here, for different reasons, of course. And I can't help also but draw some similar conclusions and parallels when we talk about Canada. And Canada, they're adding another carbon tax. We're kind of on second, third tier carbon taxes. Income tax was just raised again. I mean, every time you turn, our federal douche nozzles are increasing taxes yet one more notch. I mean, we're at a point where we're one of the highest taxed nations on the planet. Combine that with high cell phone bills, real estate. You can't even buy a home anymore unless you're making, you know, at least $200,000-$300,000 a year. Otherwise, you're basically going to be upside down. So Canada is quickly becoming one of these nations where I do believe that it's becoming very, very hard to get by. And you know, that does bring, again, a flashback of what we saw in Greece. And Greece is an absolutely gorgeous country. I mean, here, I'm just looking out at the harbor here in Mykonos, and here, I'm just going to give you a look at, these are the things, this is why people live here. I mean, money aside, this is what people deal with. You've got all of this. I mean, look how beautiful it is. Now in Canada, we have 8 months of the year is rain, is snow, and cold, and then the 4 months that are left over, it's usually raining or whatever. Now, when the sun's shining, it's gorgeous. Don't get me wrong, but it's funny when I make videos on Exotic Car Play Place. People often talk about, hey, every time I see you, it's always snow on the ground. Always snow on the ground. Does it snow ever end? Well, the reality is, honestly, it's a very short summer season. So it starts to make you wonder if, you know, there was a time when Canada was Bill C-11, where online streaming is going to be compromised, and the federal government's trying to take a hold of that and shut that down by the CRTC. We also have Bill C-18 now. The government's trying to shut down some of the big news conglomerations that aren't built in Canada. So that also is going to cause you know, more and more isolation from Canada, which basically just means we're in a bubble and people don't have the right to hear anymore the real truth across the globe. It's a sad state that we're in Canada. So between the poor weather, the fact that we're being treated like this type of a nation, the struggles are real. And it does make one open their eyes to places like, you know, like Greece here. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is a beautiful place. And honestly, it does make a person wonder, hey, maybe this is the next move. But either way, honestly,
It's hard to get by these days for anybody, unless you're making, 200-300K a year. I mean, yeah, you can rent a place, but rent is up and cost of living is way up. It's just becoming cost prohibitive for anybody to even live in Canada anymore.
And that kind of wraps up the end of the second week here in Italy. Obviously, we were spending out on the boat. Now we're finally rolling back into port. We're going to get off the boat and we're going to embark on our next week here in Italy. It's going to be spectacular. Oh, look at this guy. He's enjoying his time out here. Check it out. Right there. He's just booking on her right there, mock chicken style. Ooh, didn't know Suzuki's have that kind of jam. But here's the port right here. Basically just outside of Rome. We're gonna be getting off the boat here very, very shortly, grab some brekkie, and then we're setting off. So already, as I mentioned this week, the idea about economy and the way things are going these days, it's pretty easy to get down. But again, taking these moments, doing these things, spending time with the fam, getting in the car, going for a drive, whether it's going on a trip like this, whatever it is, those are the little things that we can do to our lives and have an impact. And that's the things that I want to make sure that I keep in focus. As long as I physically can, my legs are able to take me where I need to go, then I'm not too worried about all the rest. The economy, I'd love to move to a place like Italy like this, for example. We'll see. Always sniffing around, always looking for options. So anyway, please do drop a line below, guys. I'd love to hear your idea. I mean, wherever it is you're living, do you feel that the future is unknown, uncertain? Do you feel that it's a little bit out of control? And also, do you have ways to mitigate some of those things? Are you still able to stay positive and look forward on the outlook of life? All right.
Well, if you've been sitting around long enough to watch the entire video, then I really thank each and every one of you. Don't forget to drop that subscribe button. Hit that real gently. Don't hurt yourself. Definitely, it's one of those things we want to be around to watch every other video after. But the bottom line is, it's just proof in the pudding. Taking those days away, taking a cruise was just what the doctor ordered. That's just to wind down, relax, make the best of life, forget about all of the busyness in life, and really, project more of your feelings and your experiences towards your family, which we did. Wife, kids, we all had an absolute wonderful time. The boat ride was more or less, for the most part, very relaxing. There was a couple nights where it was a little up and down, but generally speaking, it was an absolute wonderful time. And again, as always, thanks each and every one of you for all of the support, and we will talk to you next time soon. See you then. Bye-bye.